Georgia Tech ranked 37th in pass defense in the nation last season. That doesn't tell the whole story. We bring in Joey Weaver from the Rumble seat to look back on 2015, but more importantly, look ahead to this fall and what Georgia Tech can do about the inability to rush the passer, Joey. So if we crunch the numbers a little bit further than that, we talked about it before we came on, 202 pass completions given up by the pass defense. That's a 60% completion percentage, 85th in FBS out of 128 schools. So in that lower third category, just 14 sacks out of this defense. And that was one of the lowest rates in the country as well. And sure, you get the push up the middle from the D tackles, but those D ends are the guys that usually wrap up those sacks and get to the quarterback and make the big plays in the backfield. And you just didn't have it last year.
Yeah, the pass rush has really just not been the same over the last couple of seasons, ever since Jeremiah Tauchi left. He was drafted after the 2013 season. Keshun Freeman came in 2014, and as a true freshman, he actually had a pretty good year. He was a freshman All-American. I think he had about something like 8 or 10 sacks, something like this. Did really well. Had a little bit of a sophomore slump last year, and like you said, I mean, it kind of showed in the sack rating where they just struggled all season long to get to the quarterback. And it's one of those things where they had a lot of depth and a lot of seniority in their secondary, some really good players back there. A pair of cornerbacks, DJ White got drafted, Chris Milton got signed, Jamal Golden got signed somewhere. So good players that the secondary can't cover forever. And so it's up to the defensive line to either get to the quarterback, or at some point those completions are really the fault of them as opposed to the guys back there trying to actually cover the receivers.
So, Joey, you mentioned Freeman, and his sack totals basically cut in half last year. 4 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 44 total stops. But he is the known commodity there. He's the guy that's done it for 2 seasons and, again, broke onto the scene with a stellar first season. So he kind of sets you up, and you need big production from him. Can you set us up along the defensive end position?
Yeah, so you look at that rush defensive end spot, the weak side end spot, that Freeman figures to be the starter again going into his junior year. Like I said, had a little bit of a rough year last year after a really good 2014 campaign. Hoping that he'll use that and some offseason workouts and everything to kind of get back into form of what we got used to a couple of years ago. In the meantime, he's also going to be pushed at that spot by Henri St-Amour, who is a pretty highly touted recruit coming out of Gwinnett County in that 2015 recruiting class. And definitely earned himself plenty of playing time over the course of last season. So a very talented and dangerous pass rusher that I think will see quite a bit of time, and I think there's a chance that he might end up overtaking Freeman for that starting defensive end spot on the weak side. Also worth noting here is Jordan Woods was a 4-star signee in this recent recruiting class. Could kind of play maybe either defensive end spot, the strong side or the weak side. But I would not be surprised at all to see him play quite a bit too, even as a true freshman. The coaches really like to just get their best players out there, which is understandable. And so I would not be surprised at all if he ended up seeing some time this year as well. And the other weak side guy to kind of keep an eye on would be Antonio Simmons. So he's played each of the last 2 years. He was removed from the team at the very beginning of the spring. We're not really sure why, but the hope is that he'll be able to return this fall for his junior season. He's another guy who I think he set some Florida State record for sacks as a senior in high school. So he's another very talented pass rusher. And so really, if assuming that these guys kind of pan out into what we think that they are and think that they can be, like you said, the pass rush has been a little bit of a struggle the last couple of years. And it, like I said, it hasn't been the same since Tauchi left. But they're developing a lot of depth and a lot of talent at this spot. And so I think that there's really some potential there in 2016.
Yeah, St-Amour, as you mentioned, highly touted coming out of high school, top 30 defensive end rating by a number of services. Jordan Woods, the 4-star in 2015. And as you mentioned, highly sought after across the board. Tennessee, Florida in the mix for his services. So you know that the kids get talented when schools like that are after him. So hopefully the ends can get after the quarterback this year and help you out in regards to the the negative plays for the offense, Joey. Appreciate the work, Joey. And
yeah, absolutely. I was going to say too. I mean, so that's your kind of your pass rushing side of things. You start looking at the strong side spot. That's where we'll see a lot of Pat Gamble, who plays defensive tackle. He'll occasionally slide over there as well, help set the edge, along with Rook-Chungung, a pair of fifth-year seniors. Also worth noting was Tyler Merriweather, played as a true freshman in 2014 and then redshirted last year. He returns, has looked really good. And then they also brought in Desmond Branch, was a transfer from New Mexico, I believe, a community college out there. So the strong side end as well, I should mention that they have a lot of bright spots there. There are, I believe, as many as 8 guys, if you include Simmons, that are defensive ends, purely. I wouldn't be surprised if all of them played in some capacity. They all have something that they bring to the table, and it's just going to be a big part of trying to make this defense improve over what we've seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah, saw some choice words out of Paul Johnson regarding this, the defensive line, but the ends in particular, getting after the quarterback, deplorable, horrible. Saw a number of comments made like that, and he certainly doesn't want to have to throw those terms around in speaking about his pass rush after 2016. All right, Joey Weaver from the Rumble seat breaking down the DN position at Georgia Tech. Thanks, Joey.
Thank you, Mark.